To understand the injustice that has been done to exercise, let's pretend we're back in 1995 and Nintendo is advertising the Nintendo 64. When marketing, they talk solely about the technical aspects of the machine and how it has a 93.7 MHz processor compared to the Super Nintendo's measly 3.56 MHz processor. The N64 flops, and the entire marketing team is fired since they failed to promote any relevant information, like the actual nature of the new games, or even that an entire D was added, making the games 3D instead of 2D. Of course, in reality, the Nintendo 64 did quite well. This hypothetical marketing strategy is just a parallel to the poor marketing strategy for exercise. The sales points of exercise up until now were that it's good for the heart and it will make you lose weight. First off, while these are good benefits, they're not nearly as compelling as the other benefits of exercise. Good for the heart is a vague notion that's encouraging only if you happen to be older and worried about a heart attack. Then, data is showing that exercise isn't even that effective for losing weight. A review of exercise intervention studies published in 2001 by Queen's University in Canada found that after 20 weeks, the amount of exercise energy expenditure had no correlation with weight loss. I'm not saying that exercise doesn't affect your body. The right kind of exercise increases muscle mass and improves your insulin sensitivity, setting you up to have a healthier body composition. However, if you begin exercising without managing other factors like diet, you may be very discouraged by poor weight loss results.
Does exercise work? So here are studies of exercise. You can see when compared with no treatment, exercise resulted in very small weight loss across the board. Exercise does not cause weight loss. What does exercise do? It causes muscle gain. Muscle have mitochondria. Mitochondria burn energy. So exercise is the single best thing you can do for yourself. But if you think it's going to show up on the scale, think again.
In a September 2016 issue of Time magazine, Dr. Mark Tarnopolsky said that if there were a drug that could do for human health everything that exercise can, it would likely be the most valuable pharmaceutical ever developed. To understand what makes exercise so great, we need to understand how it affects the brain. First off, what is the brain for? Some may say we have brains to think, to create art, and to come up with creative solutions to complex problems. But neuroscientist Daniel Wolpert argues that this is not the case.
We have a brain for one reason and one reason only, and that's to produce adaptable and complex movements. There is no other reason to have a brain.
To illustrate this, Daniel uses the example of a sea squirt. Early in its life, the sea squirt has a nervous system. It will use this nervous system to move around and find a suitable rock to attach itself to. Then it will spend the rest of its life there. At that point, movement is no longer a necessity for survival. So the very first thing that the sea squirt does is it digests its brain for energy. A more relatable example is the koala. The koala has adapted its digestive system to derive all the energy it needs from eucalyptus leaves. It really doesn't need to move around that much as it can just sit in a eucalyptus tree, eat, and watch the world go by. Earlier in the koala's evolution, though, it used to have a much bigger brain. However, once its diet became less diverse and required less movement to survive, its brain shrunk. Less movement meant less brain was necessary. From an evolutionary perspective, it's the same as not wasting your money on a $4,000 laptop if all you need to do is run some simple software like your web browser and email client. What research on exercise is suggesting, and a better understanding of neurochemical mechanisms is proving, is that there is a very powerful connection between the brain and movement. A big brain is necessary to facilitate complex movements, and executing such movements and getting your heart rate up bolsters your brain power. Exercise has been shown to help people learn much more efficiently, better deal with stress, and drastically reduce anxiety. It improves mood to the point of lifting people out of depression, and it strengthens focus to the point that some ADHD patients elect to throw out their prescriptions. And that's not even the full list. The California Department of Education has consistently shown that students with higher fitness scores have higher test scores. Former President Ma of Taiwan increased the occurrence of physical education in schools nationwide from twice a week to 3 times a week for this reason. The Minister of Education, Science and Technology in South Korea extended the school day by 1 hour to add more time for PE and sports. This decision was made after reading Dr. John Ratey's book Spark, which is all about the brain benefits of exercising. The reason the Taiwanese and South Korean school systems don't just have students study for another hour is because exercise actually primes the brain to learn faster. A 2007 study showed that subjects who did high-intensity exercise beforehand could learn vocabulary words 20% faster than those who remained sedentary. The key to this phenomenon is a protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF for short. In order to learn something, the brain actually needs to grow and modify its cellular infrastructure to allow neurons to fire more easily. Researchers found that if they sprinkled BDNF onto neurons in a petri dish, the cells automatically sprouted new branches, producing the same structural growth required for learning. This impressive result had John Ratey nicknamed BDNF the miracle grow for the brain. BDNF improves the function of neurons, encourages their growth, and strengthens and protects them against the natural process of cell death. BDNF is a crucial biological link between thought, emotions, and movement. A 2013 study in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine showed that just 20 to 40 minutes of aerobic exercise increased BDNF in the blood by 32%. Rather than stocking up on coffee before you sit down to study, you might want to try jogging around the block instead. One way to understand why exercise would trigger your brain to initiate learning mode like this is to think of your body as the world's most intricate if-then system. Your body has triggers for almost every physiological process. For example, if cold, then shiver. If hot, then sweat. Most of your body's physiological expressions can't be induced just by force of will. Certain triggers must be present. Alexa, increase my testosterone by 50%.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
By understanding which physiological triggers influence which physiological expressions, we can start getting our brains to do what we want. The reason exercise is a key trigger for all